She left her tea on the counter, her phone beside the sink, and the front door slightly open. By sunrise, the whole town was looking for her. By the following afternoon, they had already decided who took her. Welcome back to Cold Case History. I am going to walk you through every detail of this case, the footage, the forensics, the suspect behavior, the DNA, and the digital evidence trail. And I am going to do it the way we always do it here, with the facts, with the victims at the center, and with a commitment to asking the hard questions that this investigation demands. If you are new here, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. We cover every update on cases like this one the moment they break. And trust me, this one is not finished breaking yet. Let's begin at the beginning. Nancy Guthrie vanished on a quiet, rain-soaked night in Briarwood County. There were no signs of a struggle, no forced entry, just a cold cup of tea, an unlocked door, and a silence that settled over her neighborhood like fog. The search launched immediately. Volunteers poured in. Drones swept the tree line. Search dogs worked the lake trail on the edge of town. News vans were parked bumper to bumper before noon the next day. And within 48 hours, before the lake had even been fully dragged, Sheriff Daniel Hayes stepped up to a microphone and said 5 words that would change everything. Tommaso Cioni is a person of interest. Not arrested, not charged, not guilty of anything. Just 5 words, and the verdict was already written in the comments section. Tommaso had been dating Nancy for a year. They met at a downtown charity event. She was the kind of person who filled a room, loud in the best way, passionate and driven. He was quieter, more reserved, the kind of man who listened more than he spoke. People who knew them said they worked well together. Not perfectly, but genuinely. And when Nancy went missing, Tommaso did exactly what an innocent person would do. He went to the sheriff's office the same night, answered questions for hours, handed over his phone without being asked, gave up his passwords, and opened his apartment to a search. He thought transparency would protect him. Instead, it made him a target. 3 days in, an anonymous leak claimed the two had argued the night before she disappeared. That single sentence, unverified, unsourced, spread across every platform within hours. Talk shows ran with it. Podcasts built entire episodes around it. Sheriff Hayes neither confirmed nor denied it, and somehow, that silence was deafening. Tommaso hadn't hidden the disagreement. He told investigators exactly what happened. They had a tense conversation about work pressure and time. It lasted maybe 15 minutes. Nancy left, cooled down, and texted him that evening saying she needed space and would talk the next day. That next day never came. But what investigators focused on wasn't the text. It was the tension. They pressed him about his jealousy. They questioned his tone. They pushed hard on his movements between 10 at night and midnight. And while they were pushing, Tommaso handed them proof. A grocery store receipt timestamped at 11:37 p.m., nearly 18 miles from Nancy's house. Security cameras at the store confirmed he was there. Cell tower data placed his phone in that exact location at 11:34 p.m. And yet, at a later briefing, Hayes stood at the podium and told reporters there were inconsistencies in Tommaso's account. No specifics, no examples, just the word inconsistency dropped into the room like a match near dry wood. Meanwhile, a neighbor had reported seeing a dark SUV parked on Nancy's street around the time she vanished. Tommaso drove a silver sedan. He had never owned an SUV. That detail got a paragraph. Tommaso's name got a headline. By the end of the first week, the consequences were already piling up. He lost work contracts. A client cut ties publicly, citing community concern. Someone spray-painted the word liar across his garage door. His mother stopped picking up calls from numbers she didn't recognize after strangers began threatening her. And still, no one had found Nancy. Tommaso eventually spoke publicly, standing outside his lawyer's office with cameras surrounding him. His voice shook, but he kept going. He said he loved Nancy. He said he would never hurt her. And then he said what a lot of people had been quietly thinking. The sheriff, he said, was pointing at the easiest target instead of asking harder questions. Hayes responded the next morning with the kind of polished non-answer that press conferences are built for. They would follow the evidence wherever it leads, he said. But people were starting to wonder whether the evidence was actually being followed at all. Why had it taken 6 days to pull traffic camera footage from the highway exit? Why were warrants for nearby abandoned properties delayed? Why was the SUV sighting treated like a footnote? And then, quietly, something cracked open. A gas station camera 2 miles from Nancy's home captured a dark SUV moving toward the interstate at 11:42 p.m., 5 minutes after Tommaso's grocery receipt was printed. The license plate was partially blocked. The footage had not been mentioned in any official briefing. When reporters asked about it, the sheriff's office said it was still under review. Tommaso's attorney formally requested full documentation of every investigative step taken in the first 72 hours of the case. No response came. If you're still here, subscribe, because cases like this only work when people stay and tell us where you're watching from. I love seeing my global family represent. Drop your country or city in the comments. Then came the detail that changed the entire shape of the investigation. During a forensic review of Nancy's phone records, investigators found a call placed at 10:58 p.m. on the night she disappeared. It lasted 43 seconds. The number wasn't saved in her contacts. It had been deleted from her recent call history afterward. When investigators traced it, the number came back to a prepaid phone registered under a false name. That call did not come from Tommaso. His legal team learned about it through a source connected to the case. When his attorney pushed the sheriff's office directly, the response was brief and careful. They were aware of the call and were investigating its relevance. Investigating its relevance. To Tommaso, it wasn't a loose thread. It was everything. Nancy had called someone else, someone unknown, minutes before she vanished, and investigators had not made it public. The timeline kept tightening. Security footage from Nancy's street showed headlights slowing in front of her house at 11:21 p.m. Analysts matched the vehicle profile to the dark SUV multiple witnesses had described. The sheriff's office did not release that footage. Instead, Hayes returned to the podium and told the press they had reason to question the full accuracy of Tommaso's account of the evening. No details, no specifics, just enough smoke to keep the fire burning. Friends of Nancy began speaking more openly. In the weeks before she disappeared, she had canceled plans twice without explanation. She had stepped outside during a dinner to take a call and came back visibly unsettled. Tommaso had asked her what was wrong that night. She told him it was nothing, just work. He hadn't pushed it. Now he wished he had. Then came the money. Nancy had withdrawn $8,000 in cash from her bank account 2 days before she disappeared. It hadn't been mentioned in any press conference. When reporters eventually asked about it, Hayes confirmed the withdrawal and immediately dismissed it as unconnected. No evidence of foul play, he said, but also no explanation. No follow-up. Just a wall. A volunteer searcher then came forward claiming they had found a burned patch of ground near an abandoned barn on the outer edge of the search zone. According to the volunteer, they were directed away from the area and told not to discuss what they had seen. The sheriff's office denied any suppression of evidence. But the questions didn't stop. Why had the search radius closed in so quickly around the lake when credible leads pointed in other directions? Tommaso's attorney filed a formal motion requesting an independent review of the investigation, arguing that law enforcement had developed tunnel vision, that they had settled on a suspect early and bent the case around that assumption rather than following every lead equally. That phrase, tunnel vision, hit the town like a shockwave. Hayes pushed back hard in a televised interview. He said they followed facts, not public pressure. But the facts about the deleted call, the SUV footage, and the cash withdrawal had all been either withheld or minimized while Tommaso's name was repeated at every briefing. And then the prepaid phone spoke again. Records showed it had pinged off a cell tower near the interstate at 11:15 p.m., moving away from town. That tower was miles from where Tommaso had been confirmed to be at that exact moment. Whoever held that phone had left Briarwood County quickly, quietly, while every camera in town was pointed at the boyfriend. When the story leaked to a regional outlet, the shift in public sentiment was immediate. Online communities that had spent 2 weeks building cases against Tommaso started pulling the threads in a completely different direction. Who bought the prepaid phone? Who made the call? Who needed $8,000 in cash and why? Investigators traced the prepaid phone to a small convenience store 2 towns over. Security footage from the store showed a man purchasing the phone with cash in the days before Nancy disappeared. He wore a cap pulled low, but enhancement of the footage was enough. Investigators identified him. He had a minor criminal record, fraud and extortion. And the thing that made Briarwood County go completely silent was not his past. It was his connection to Nancy. No arrest had been made. No charges had been filed against anyone. Tommaso remained a person of interest in name only while the real picture began assembling itself in the background. And Nancy Guthrie was still missing. This case is not over. The identity of that connection, the decision made inside the sheriff's department that threatened to unravel the entire investigation, and the evidence that was almost buried for good are all coming in the next part. If you are not subscribed, do it right now. Hit the bell so you are notified the moment it drops, because what comes next does not just shift this case. It challenges everything the public was told from day one. And if this story reached you, leave a comment below and tell me where in the world you are watching from. I read every single one. Share this video with someone who follows true crime, because the more people who know Nancy's name, the harder it becomes to let her case go cold. We do not let cases go cold here. That is the whole point. Stay with me.